Okay, it's recording now, so we're on. We're live. We're on here. And can you see my OneNote file that says Tutor Tuesday? Excuse me, Tutor Thursday and today's date, and I don't have really anything else on there yet. Yes. Okay. Good. And then just standard practice here. If you want to talk, ask me something. Great. If not, if you could keep your thing on mute, that'd be wonderful, so we can avoid having too much feedback on this, so that Tristan doesn't have to edit too much later, because I think he's going to be the one editing this after the fact, not me, because, well, anyway. All right. So I don't know who sent this in, but to start today, this is going to be a Network Plus topic. But if you're setting up home networks, even if you're not taking Network Plus, this will apply to you too. Something you might want to pay attention to a little bit. But it's dealing with what we call antenna placement. And so a question came up. I don't know who sent it in, but a question came up on antenna placement and types of antennas you might use. So what I'm going to do here is draw a little bit. I'm going to, let me get this back over here for a second. Hang on. All right. So I'm going to say we're in a room here. And, you know, this is maybe a building to where you've got, there we go. All right. So maybe you got a couple floors. By the way, my drawing skills are terrible, but so let's say you've got the first floor here and the second floor here, and you're trying to, you know, it could be like a basement in the living quarters or something like that, and you're trying to get the best antenna in for the network. Now, this is actually a possible test question on Network Plus too. So really what the key is, you need to know your different antennas and what you would use. And by the way, the antennas we're talking about, you'll find on your wireless access points, most of which you'll just go purchase at a store or something like that. But I want to take you through a couple of the main types of antennas that you have. And also, you know, I actually remember, without giving too much away, I don't remember what exam it was, but it was sort of like, not only did they ask, might you be asked what type of antenna, but how do you point the thing, which is kind of interesting. But all right, so you have a couple of types of antennas. I'm going to draw them out here, okay? And this is not a good artist rendering by any means. So, oh, unmute you guys? Oh, hold on. Hold on. Do I have two screens and no black boxes? I am on my laptop, and you know what? Give me a second, and I'm just going to make it happen here. So pardon me for that. Okay, so let's see. All right. So let's say you need to place an antenna someplace. All right, so that's the thing we want to figure out here. Now, with that in mind, all right, so there's two major types of antennas, and this is the point that I'm making here. All right, so we have, I'm just going to draw a little antenna here. We have what's called a unidirectional antenna, and we have an omnidirectional antenna. All right. Now, anybody who might be studying Network Plus, can you tell me what the difference is between these two antennas? All right, so you got a couple of people in the chat box giving us actually the correct answers here, and that is the unidirectional antenna only points the signal in, where'd my cursor go? There we go. Okay, it only points the signal in one direction, hence the term uni, one direction, unidirectional. The omnidirectional is going to give you a 360. All right? So that's part of the conversation there. Now, with the unidirectional, it's going to be the one direction if you point stuff. All right? Chris Price, you said you're still muted here? Let me see.
No, it's good now.
Oh, okay.
That's good, Jason.
Good, good, good. All right, wonderful. Okay, so the idea is you first have to figure out, all right, am I going to go with unidirectional or omnidirectional? And a lot of it just depends on distance, because which one of the two is going to give you more distance on average?
Unidirectional.
Yeah, the unidirectional is going to give you more distance. So it is a little bit of a balancing act as far as, you know, which one you're going to use. So that's part of what you take into consideration. But for the exam, one of the more important things to realize is how you point the antenna, because see, if I point it this way right now, okay, let's say I stick this unidirectional straight up, and I've got this pointing this way. Is the second floor going to get much of a signal? Not at all. Caesar's saying no, and you're correct, Caesar. Okay? It's not going to get a signal. So if you're going to use a unidirectional antenna here, oops, pinch that one in way too much. Actually, hang on 1 second. Oops. Okay, this is better. Okay, so here's the whole idea here. Let's get back to this. Okay, there we go. Tristan's gonna have fun with me. Okay, so here's the deal. With this unidirectional antenna, it's only gonna point the signal in that direction. It's not gonna get the signal going to the second. Okay, so in order for you to get that to point to the second floor, what you have to do, I'm gonna draw a different antenna here, is you have to actually point this, figure out which direction the signal is going. This way, this is a sideways unidirectional antenna. Now, at this point, you're going to be able to get the signal pointed upward onto the second floor. So that's really what this comes down to. All right. So that's kind of the thing with antennas. First, you have to figure out which one you're going to get. Secondly, if you do get a unidirectional one, then you need to make sure you point that in the correct direction. So, any questions there? So on the subject of antennas, let me just bring this back up. On the subject of antennas here, let me ask you this: those of you who are studying this, what about a MIMO antenna?
Multi-input, multi-output antenna?
Huh? Pardon me?
Multi-input, multi-output?
Multi-input, multi-output. So what benefit do you gain over, like, first of all, what routers?
And
What routers use N routers? Okay, what about AC routers?
That would be an AC router.
you won't see it on a B or a G, though. It introduced during N.
Right. Okay, so MIMOs are used on N routers. So any questions there? With ACs, you get what's called a multi-user, multiple input, multiple output antenna, and with those, you can actually send multiple frames to multiple clients at the same time. So those are your most powerful antennas. Any other questions there? All right. So that was the one question that I got an email from somebody. I actually got it through Tristan to send to somebody else. So that's the deal with the antennas. All righty. Now, as far as other questions you might have, floor is yours here.
Any tips for Wi-Fi, or not, I'm sorry, Wi-Fi type protocols, or any tips on memorize, or, trying to memorize cables and distances? That's kind of one of the things I've been working on since my test is tomorrow. Are those two things?
Is this Eric?
Yes.
All right. So first things first. When it comes to distances, the number one thing to remember, I'm just going to type this all up here. Okay. The biggest thing to remember is your twisted pair, which is going to give you a distance of what? 100. 100 meters, 328 feet.
Right.
Okay. The second thing is, I don't remember seeing test questions to get too picky about, like, 1,000 base this, 1,000 base that. What distance do you get? More
Yeah,
it's a conceptual thing. Pardon me?
that's actually one of the things I was looking at. You hit it on the nail on the head, like when I was studying earlier. I
Uh-huh.
was curious as to, am I really going to see much in the way of, 10 base T? Because like in my mind, one of the things I thought of was 3, 5, 5E are all going to be 100,
Right.
as well as 6 if it's 10 or 1,000 base T. But as soon as you go to 100 or 10G base T, it's 10 gigabytes, but it's only 55 meters max.
Okay, so now here's one thing. Okay, Caesar, you're talking about what cable did you use for? Okay, so the first thing you look for is this. You look for any distance or speed requirements. Now, we're strictly talking test tip here, all right? You look for speed and distance requirements. So anything over 328 feet, you're not using twisted pair, correct?
Makes sense?
Okay. Then if you get something that's like, 20 kilometers, well, that's too long for multimode. I don't remember the exact distance offhand, but what you have to do is go back and see, all right, what's my longest multimode cable that I have in the chart? I would suggest looking in the project workbook. In fact, I have a copy of the project workbook on my other monitor here that you cannot see right now. So let me...
Well, in single mode, it should be, your 1,000 base LX should be 2 kilometers, 10 base
Yeah.
LR. I always think of that as long range, is your 10 kilometers.
Okay,
and I
so...
thought there was one that went to 40. I can't remember that one, though.
Uh-huh. So it's on page 251 of the project workbook. 251 for those standards. Okay? Now, here's the biggest thing. Longest, if you get fiber optic, typically the longest multimode distance is going to be 5 kilometers. 5 kilometers. All right? So anything over 5 kilometers, you're looking at single mode. So that's another thing that you want to take into consideration, all right? So my point is on those, if you get a couple of key distances down, then most of those questions, like the chances you're going to get a question, as part of either a troubleshooting or as part of a network setup. Those are your two main things. So it's just getting the right cable for the job. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is speed. All right, like as far as twisted pair goes, what's the top speed you're going to get? I mean, most twisted pair cables, you can get really, really, you can get really top speeds, at least a gig, whatever. But my point is, you do want to take the speed into consideration as well. But most of your cabling questions are going to be distance related. In fact, it's been a little while, but all I remember is getting distance related questions, and they really focus on those two main numbers, especially at 328 feet. So on cables, those would be my tips.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right. What else we got? I know we got more. By the way, a friendly reminder to everybody, make sure I get your name on the attendance sheet before you leave. Okay? So if you have to leave before 5, make sure I have your name down. Because I'm only looking at the attendance list once in a while here. Okay? All right, so yeah, networking, and like I said, it's all distance, mostly distance related for those questions. And then the other cabling questions you might get are just your typical troubleshooting ones, such as what can cause electromagnetic interference. All right, so let's just do a quick review on that. What are your major causes of electromagnetic interference? While you're putting those answers in, I'll be back in just 1 second, okay? All right, sorry about that. I'm back. Causes of VMI. Fluorescent lights. Yes, fluorescent light. Fluorescent light. It's not fluorescent light. It's fluorescent light. Microwaves. Yes. What else?
Metal studs. Or wait, that's interference. Never mind. I'm thinking of something else. That's the that'll block your Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Motors and stuff.
Yeah. How about this? TVs could cause it. Other devices, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of different causes of electromagnetic interference. For the Tesla, the main ones are going to be it's just a bad cable. Things like that. Oh, we got 19 people in here today. This is great. I'd like to be unmuted. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. Those of you who just came in, let me unmute you. I got to figure out a way where it just unmutes you by default. You know what I mean?
Hi, Jason. This is Bernie.
I think I got it. Hey, Bernie, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. No, I had problems booting my computer up to log in. I was in, but it wasn't in. So I logged in with my phone. I'm back in. I just want to make sure you have me on your attendance.
I do, yes. Mr.
Okay,
Kent. Bernie Kent. In fact, you were the second name on my list today.
All right, perfect.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, cabling questions. It's going to be a lot of distance. It's going to be a lot of troubleshooting. You might get a picture of a couple of buildings, and they might ask you what cable you need to use between the buildings, and you just have to know what the distance is.
Do you need to know it in meters and feet?
I would say, okay, on that one, I would say the 100 meters and 328 feet. For your twisted pair, for your fiber optic, you can stick with kilometers.
Okay.
You don't need to worry about miles. So let me just get back over here and mention that. There you go, except for the 328 feet. Okay? Any questions on that? Eric, are you taking not to put you on the spot, you're taking Network Plus pretty soon, right?
Tomorrow. Yep.
Oh, yeah, well, I guess that's pretty soon. All right.
Yeah.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, biggest thing, troubleshoot. The other thing is troubleshooting questions. And like I said before, when you get a troubleshooting questions, the first thing you ask yourself is, what would I do? I've got a troubleshooting question. I've got 4 or 5 options here. What would I do? It's probably the right answer. Make sure you know the CompTIA troubleshooting theory well enough also, because you could get some questions like, all right, somebody did this, what's the next step? And so you want to make sure you know those 7 steps for the troubleshooting theory. Listen, one thing about the Network Plus test that makes it a little bit, I don't want to say trickier, but I can't figure out the right word right now. But anyway, it makes it a little bit different than A+. It's just that there's so many different objectives and sub-objectives on the Network Plus, yet you get like 100 or fewer questions. So they can't possibly ask you about everything. But that being said, and this is advice I've given out just about every time I've been in a tutor session, is that you always, any test that you take, you always want to go through the objective list line by line before you sit and take the exam. This way you know that you've got your bases covered and then what else you do need to cover. So that's a big, big part of all this. All right, so we got a little bit on cabling questions. You got a little bit of antenna coverage here. Both of them are considered Network Plus basically, but we take other questions too. So, all right, who else has got something on their mind? Let me ask you a question, okay? Those of you who've gotten at least one certification through us within the last, let's just say, year and a half? I'm just curious. I want to know for my own reference because we're always trying to improve our product here, okay? It's really important to us. So those of you who've gone through a certification, how many of you have gone through at least a good chunk of the project workbooks, like the workbooks for A+, the workbook for Network? We do not have a workbook for Security Plus yet, but we're going to be doing one this year when we do the new Security Plus course later this year. But how many of you have gone through the A+ and Network Plus workbooks? And then the question I have for that is, if you have, how useful were they?
I just started the A+, Jason, and I did print out the workbook. I did not print out the workbooks in the Microsoft courses, but I did print this one out, which was about a half a sheet of paper. But no, I find it very useful.
Good. Okay, Gustin said every last bit possible. Yeah. Yeah, on the network, on those, I don't expect that everyone's going to have all the equipment to do all those exercises. And the reality is, on those tests, you're only going to get a few simulation questions anyway, but we just like to try to get you prepared the best we can. So, you know, like for Network Plus, you can get practice on command prompts. Anybody with a Windows machine, sorry, Jim, anybody with a Windows machine can get one for get practice for the command prompts there. Same thing for A+. If you've got Windows, you can practice those command prompts, you know. And I also realize that for A+, for the 902 exam, they do have a little section on Macs. They do have a little section on Linux. Just remember, though, any topic that you see on that exam that's a described topic is very unlikely to get you a simulation. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but for Network Plus, excuse me, for A+, 902, when I took that test, I got like one Mac question, one Linux question. And I didn't have to do anything. I just had to know what it did. So for Linux, you just need to know what those commands do. For Macs, you just need to know what those commands do.
Question here.
Yeah.
How much of troubleshooting Windows is there on the test?
Which test?
I mean, the A+, the first one, I think 901.
Troubleshooting Windows?
Whichever one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Troubleshooting? All right. No problem here. Listen, troubleshooting questions, you're very unlikely to see any on the 901 regarding Windows, and you're very likely to see quite a few on 902.
Thank you.
Yeah. 901 is the hardware. 901 is the hardware.
Oh, okay, I see. So which means, yeah, the 902 would be the Windows and all that other stuff.
Yeah. 902, you're going to get Windows. Listen, 902, you're going to get Windows troubleshooting. You're going to get troubleshooting on mobile devices. You'll get some mobile device troubleshooting in 901 as well. They kind of spread those out. But as far as strictly Windows go, operating systems are not touched until 902. Go ahead.
Because also the objective, they have like CPU sockets, and the Intels and and the AMDs. How much of those should I be focusing on?
Basically, if you just know which numbers go with which, it should be just fine.
But they're not gonna ask about like the names and all that other stuff.
More compatibility questions, like for Intel ones, for example, the number on it usually represents the number of pins, which means that you're not going to get one that's compatible with the other, most likely. But the CPU, listen, the CPU questions are more of the installation of the CPU. So, for example, defining what keeps it cool, know what the thermal paste is, stuff like that. Okay, Christopher had a question. How many questions are on the 901 and 902? I do not remember the exact number. I want to say it was around 90 each.
Wow.
I think when I did my A+ 901 and 902, I had like 85, and on one I actually had 90, the max.
Yeah, it's around 90 or so, give or take a couple on either side.
I guess it could be more if it went through everything.
Oh gosh, if they went through every objective, you'd be sitting there taking that test until the ball dropped next year. And we're only in January. I mean, that would just be like, That wouldn't be too cool, I don't think. That's pretty funny, though. So, you know what, though? It's funny. Of all the certification tests that I've taken, the most number of questions I've seen are on CompTIAs. Microsoft, I don't see more than any of those. So, all right, what else you got? By the way, thank you for the feedback on the workbooks. It's much appreciated because we've really worked hard on trying to make those as best of test preparers as we can. Knowing that not everybody has all the equipment to do all the exercises and whatnot. Really, it's to get you more exposure as to what you might see on the test. And Augustine, I did see your message as far as wishing there was one for Security Plus. The next Security Plus course there will be. We're actually changing out Security Plus later this year, so it's not really like they did the course a couple of years ago before I came on board. So now it's kind of like it's too late to do a workbook now, given that they're going to expire that one later this year. But the next Security Plus is going to definitely have a workbook. Yeah, there you go. Right. Okay, what else do we have? Anybody run into any trouble trying to study something?
Yeah, printers. I'm having a little trouble with printers.
Printers?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, as far as like, because I didn't really give them. I didn't value the printer part. So which means every time I hear all these others dragging about the printers, like the thermos, you know what I mean, the processing of the inkjet, you know what I mean, and all these other toners.
Yep.
It's hard for me to grasp them.
Okay, so here's what you do with that. Okay, let me just give you a couple of notes here. Okay, Chris, yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, on printers, major things to know. What each printer does as far as type of job. Let me give you an example, okay? So what kind of printers are on the A+ 901 test? Well, you've got LaserJet, right? You've got laser, inkjet, thermal. What's the other one?
And impact.
One more.
Impact.
Impact, yeah. Okay.
There was another one. It's piezoelectric.
It's not listed in the test objectives, though.
I've seen like 2 questions with it in there.
That's in the impact family, I think.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I
So
seen that word. I was like, what is that?
piezoelectric.
Actually, it's movement.
Yeah.
It's a measurement of movement.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a movement, yeah. Okay, so with each of these different printers, here's what you want to know: what type of print, each printer does, what type of job, and then also just the printing process. So in the course, also in the project workbook, we do list the steps for what each printer does as far as the order of things. It's a little bit of a memorization, but basically, here's what you have to. Here's the most important thing. I'm telling you right now, this is the most likely one of the tests. Most important thing is this: how does the ink get on the paper? Okay? Really, that's what it comes down to. How does the ink get on the paper? So, for example, what's used to get ink on the paper for laser printers?
Fuser, no? Or is it developed?
Electric current.
Yeah, electric current. Okay.
Yeah, electric.
With laser printers, it's a combination of electric current, heat, right, and the drum. Now that piezoelectric you're talking about, it's okay. This is where piezoelectric fits in. I misspoke a little bit earlier. Sorry about that, but piezoelectric is a type of printing head that you find on inkjet. So that's where you may have seen that term. All right. Now, the other piece is for inkjets. How does the ink get onto the paper?
Droplets of ink? No.
How?
Diffuser, no?
There's a key word you want to focus on here. It's drops. Little inklet drops. That's the key. Okay, thermal. How does the ink get onto the paper with a thermal?
Heated?
Heated, yes. It's almost like a melting effect. Okay, what about an impact printer? How does the ink get onto the paper there?
Ribbon?
With the ribbon.
Impact.
Ribbon, breaking. Yeah, breaking. Okay. So,
Striking page.
and as far as types of jobs go with laser printers, okay, I'm going to give you a hint for the exam here. It's simply this, highest quality. If you're talking about somebody comes to you and says, hey, I need the highest quality printer, you're getting them a laser printer. Simple as that. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. For inkjets, quality but economical. For thermal, there's two things that you'll see off a thermal printer frequently: pictures and receipts. Can you get that back to receipt paper that you get sometimes when people print you a receipt?
Jason, where would be the practical application for pictures? Because I've not seen pictures on thermal paper.
If you go to a photo print shop, you might.
Okay.
It's not going to be. That's a good question. It's not going to be for like what we do at home.
Right.
The DMV uses them.
Pardon me?
The DMV uses them.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, they got to make sure that your bad picture from the DMV mugshot looks as clear as possible, right?
Yeah, well, they give them on temporary licenses here in Kansas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much like a receipt.
Yeah, and in your impact, it's going to be mostly for dry paper, paper on rollers. You know, so like if they have to print multiple copies of something, and you get the the older paper with a carbon effect, that's going to be the most likely time you're going to use. What's the matter just knowing, for printers, it's knowing the printing process. The most important part being how does the ink get on the paper. And then the other piece is proper cleaning. Let me give you an example of this. When would you use a wet cloth to clean these printers?
A wet cloth? I don't think ever.
A couple of you didn't fall for that. Nice. Now, you never use a wet cloth to clean the printers. Never, never, never. Okay, so proper cleaning. If all else fails,
So no power washing?
yeah. No, I don't think so. If all else fails, manufacturer's instructions. That's your go-to. That's your default. But for lasers, for the toner, a toner vacuum is a good tool to use. Or other, I never can spell vacuum correctly. Oh, I was almost there. All right. So basic premise is whatever, most important things, follow the manufacturer's instructions. You know, for a lot of these inkjet printers, they're self-cleaning, so to speak. They're like those self-cleaning ovens. You push a button, that run a couple pieces of paper, it cleans the rollers off for you. The other thing you want to know for printers for the A+ exams is what can cause print. Okay, so for like a laser printer, for example, it could be bad fuse. Also, what's inside the printer kit? That's a good point too. inkjets, clogged heads. For impact printers, bad ribbon, bad striker, those types of things. So those are the kinds of questions that you can expect to see regarding printers. For the 901 test. Now for the 902 exam, that's all 901. For the 902 exam, I'm going to give you a big test tip right here, ladies and gents. Make sure you know how to install and share a printer in Windows. Okay. That's really important. Know how to share the printer. So one thing you want to practice now, you listen. Even if you don't have a printer installed, you can just install a printer that's got a built-in Windows driver, and then just delete it right after the fact. But you do need to make sure you go through the different tabs in the printer properties: the security tab, the sharing tab, the tab that's got the additional drivers on it, so that you can install. Let's say if you're sharing a printer, it can be installed over multiple operating systems, even Linux, Macs, some cases. Okay. So it's really important that you study those different tabs on printers. It's a possible simulation question even, as far as being able to install and share a printer. So that's why I put share in caps, because it's important. All right? Okay. What else do we have?
What about displays?
Minutes or so. Pardon me?
Displays, the monitors and all that stuff.
Pardon me?
Display? And
Display
monitors?
questions? Yeah, monitors. Okay. Yeah, let me put that over here. Thank you. Monitors, displays. All right. Oh. For the 901 exam, know your different types of displays, like your LCDs, things like that. OLED. Basically, listen, when you're studying through this, most important thing is look for keywords that make these different ones distinct from each other. For example, your OLED displays are going to have higher quality, but also a higher price. Other things that you need. And you want to know the different terms of the pieces that make up a display. So and I'm kind of going random here, as this is kind of rote, but know which displays use a backlight. If the backlight goes out, there's your picture. Also, as a troubleshooting question, first thing to check. Now, here's what makes it interesting. In real life, if your display goes out, first thing you do is you go to the store and buy another one, right?
Oh.
Check cable.
Yeah. But first thing to check is the backlight, if you can. Backlight. Okay, and then something else, and I know it was on previous A+ tests. I'm not sure if it made the cut for this round here, but here's the one for you. Which type of display do you never try to fix?
CRT,
The CRT, exactly.
Plasma.
cathode ray
CRT.
tube.
The CRT.
Oh, yeah.
Because those things conduct electricity even long after you unplug them. So if you try to mess with one, you risk getting zapped.
Good buddy.
CRTs don't even exist no more.
Oh, they still exist.
Not in use.
They're
Yeah,
even
some
still in
places
use.
still use them as legacy. Certain devices.
Yeah. They're beyond legacy now. But anyway, so those are some of the types of questions. I don't think that's a complete list, but those are some of the types of things you'll see on the 901. Now, the 902, just know how to configure one of those. So what I would suggest is, and this is for Windows, I'm on Windows 10, so I can't really show you this right now, but for Windows, basically, when you get a chance, just right-click the desktop, go to your display properties, take a look, and if you have the ability to work with two monitors, even when you're practicing, yeah, go through the being able to change this. Oh, here's one for you. That's native resolution on a monitor.
Manufacturer recommendations, huh?
Yeah, manufacturer recommendation. Oh yes, thanks, Caesar. See, Caesar helped me out here. This is good. Oh yes. Oh yes. Also for the 901. Yeah, Caesar just reminded me here. Don't forget about dead pixels, artifacts. Yeah. So, know what a dead pixel is. Okay. When a pixel gets stuck on a color, is there a name for that?
Excuse me?
I had that question the other day, and I can't remember the word. I know what it is, but
What was the question?
Stuck pixel.
When a pixel gets stuck on a color.
usually red, green, or blue.
Yeah.
Stuck pixel.
Stuck pixel, exactly. Actually, that's a term.
You gave it away in the question.
Yeah, I know, didn't I? It's kind of like a trick, no trick, trick question, right? Oh. Stuff like that. Yeah, okay, so here, native resolution is the factory settings. Before I forget, all right, just a slight break in the action. Yeah, you can look at incorrect color patterns, dim images, things like that. Wrong mode set. One I've seen is that the refresh rate was set too high. There's a couple different possibilities there. All right, before I forget, since we have a few minutes left, I'm going to do a little roll call here and make sure I got everybody. Let's see, I do have on my email to send for friends, I've got Bernie, I've got Daryl, I've got Eric, I've got Caesar. Caesar, since I just mentioned your name, to answer your question, is it a video you can run to fix color issues with LED screens? The answer is yes, and no, it doesn't always work. Yeah. There's software you can download to recalibrate a screen. That's actually more common, Caesar, on mobile devices than it is on desktops, but yeah, you can run it. Okay, I've got Caesar, I've got Jeff Terrian, I've got Clarence, I've got Augustin, Alan Jackson I have on the list, Christopher Bryce. Okay. I got Chuck Ricketts, I got David Bailey, Eugene Steen, I got Mr. McAuliffe. Joselito, Jose Bernice. I hope I wasn't.
It's pronounced Josue.
Josue. Oh, thank you, kind sir. Josue. Okay, I got Michael Brewer. Yeah, I do. Okay, I got Nicole. I've got Patrick P. Must be an alias thing there. I got Scott Nelson. Did I not call off your name, somebody? I don't think anyone's going to come in the last 7 minutes here. So, all right. So yeah, just some things on just a few things on monitors. What about troubleshooting a laptop display screen, Patrick? Okay. So as far as fixing or troubleshooting a laptop display screen, yes, you can attempt to do it. Laptop screens, if they go out, if there's a backlight there, usually the backlight's the main cause.
Okay.
So that can be replaced. The other thing to troubleshoot is the cable connection. Sometimes they're not the strongest connections inside these devices, so you can look at that. But here's a good test tip for you. Okay, somebody calls you up, says their laptop screen is kaput. It's the first thing you do.
Say that again.
Somebody calls you up and says their laptop screen is out. What is the first thing you do?
Check the power save.
They say the laptop's on.
Fire it up in safe mode so you can look at the display settings.
Dim setting? I mean, trying to contrast and all that? No.
What about checking the key to make sure it's not trying to send to like a projector or an external monitor?
Exactly. Okay, Nicole just answered this as well. All right, listen. If somebody calls you up, I'm actually applying the troubleshooting theory here. The first step is to identify the problem. Steps you can take that. All right. So the first calls up and says my laptop screen is out. First general move is to plug it into a monitor. Plug the laptop into a monitor. If the monitor works, your next move is to, and listen, this is not actually a test tip here, the second part. If the monitor works, you can try Windows P, but also look for, on the keyboard, the monitor, the display cycle button. It's usually like, well, let's see what it is on my laptop here. It's F10, okay? I've actually seen this quite a few times where somebody pressed that display cycle button and they got stuck on having an external monitor and then their regular display didn't work. So they plugged in a monitor, they cycled through a couple times, and then they were cool. It happens. But yeah, the most important thing is, first step is plug the laptop into a regular monitor, see if you get a picture. Because what you're trying to identify, remember, identifying the problem is just that. You're trying to identify when a display is not working. Is it the display? Is it the video card? Obviously, if it's the video card, you got a problem here, right? But if it's just a display, replace that. So those are your first steps. And by the way, very likely, no, I wouldn't say very likely, but there's a decent chance you could get that kind of test question. And you know what? Rebooting the device is not the answer. Now, here's one for you. Let's just finish this note here, okay? Tablet, no display. What do you do first?
Power cycle?
Power cycle, yeah. Exactly. And then also check the dim settings. So dim settings, if it's then you check the dim settings, but there's no display at all, try a power cycle. But again, a lot of these troubleshooting questions just come down to what would I do first? And I'm going to say this as the last tip. Don't overthink the troubleshooting questions. Most every troubleshooting question I've seen on that exam, those exams, it's like, you know, you get 4 or 5 answers. 2 answers are pretty legit. The other 2 are like, seriously? There's one question, I don't remember who asked it, but it was way back. Security plus cryptographic settings. Exactly what were you going at through there? Because that could mean a number of things. Guess we don't know. All right. Okay. What other last-minute questions might you have before we wrap up this fine Thursday?
Any last-minute tips for Network Plus tomorrow?
Yeah, just read every question thoroughly. Read the answers thoroughly. Remember, you can mark stuff for review. Take your time. And especially on those troubleshooting questions, what your most real life likely scenario would be probably the correct answer on the test too.
All right.
Just one more thing about those tests. Just remember this: you have about 1 minute per question. If you've done your homework, it's going to take you far less than 1 minute to answer most of those. That leaves you a minute, minute and a half, couple of minutes for the tougher ones. Oh, and Eric, the other thing is, things like subnetting or whatever, when you get that tutorial period in between the time that they get, check you in and you actually start the test, I always like to take that opportunity to grab that paper or wax paper or whatever they give you and just write down the last few things that could fall out of my head at any given time.
Oh, I do that. I end up filling that top to bottom, left to right, just on one side, because the place I go to has it laminated with it's not a dry erase, it's a
Right.
permanent marker, but you need it's a special cleaner to get it off the plastic, whatever they use. So in other words, once you write, it's on there, so they know what you wrote. But yeah, I sit down, I just do a lot of the basic stuff.
Right.
And then, like I said, like when I did this when I passed the Security Plus 2 weeks ago, the thing I did there that helped a lot was, like I was saying before, I either know the questions or I don't, unless it's a simulation or something I have to figure out with like networking or something like that.
Sure.
But what I do is I know it and I move on. And when I did the Security Plus, I had enough time to go back through a second time completely with 12 seconds left.
Yeah.
And I actually found 5 questions I did change the answer to. And when I first looked, it was one of those, snafus you get in your mind when you go, oh, I know that, and you click it and move on. But realistically, I was like, oh, no. I clicked, it's like what you said, Jason, about there's 4 multiple choice, and you can knock 2 right out. Exactly. And I look at the other 2, and I know what the answer is, but psychologically, I clicked the wrong one, so I had to, luckily I went back and fixed them.
Yeah, and then lastly, one thing I've done on tests at times is the ones where you can go back and mark for review. Sometimes I'll write down the question number and what the 2 answers were. So then if I see a similar question later on, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, and then you go back and you fix the other one. So.
That's a good strategy. I actually use that in the Microsoft courses.
So did I. You know what? I did that on Microsoft Test. I kid you not. This was probably 3 years ago. I was finishing up my SQL Server MCSA, and I got it like right on the button, 700, because I did that.
Yeah.
Because it was a tough test, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be close. And then I had a couple that I fixed, and I got 700. I'm just like, okay, thank you. Give me the paper. I'm out.
No, I noticed the flow of the questions. So if I got stuck on one, I did have to learn the discipline to not get my brain stuck on that question, stay there, and just mark it for review.
Yeah,
but I didn't necessarily write it down, but I made a mental note. And sometimes I would go 3 questions out and go back to that one and say, haha, now I know that answer.
Exactly, yeah. All right, well, listen, everyone, it's been fun. Lots of good questions, lots of little things today. Sometimes you just got to clean up some little things here. So I will get these notes posted sometime soon into the forums on the forum site. And we'll get this edited and get this posted. I don't know where they post this, actually, but I'll get this to Tristan and we'll get this taken care of. But everybody, thanks for letting me pinch hit today. Thank you very much, and go get them. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good weekend.